We'll call the meeting to order. First, I'm going to have a roll call. Harold Shin, chair here. Skylar Clark
Here.
Doug Edwards, he would not be able to make it. James Kim. Sam Cock.
Yeah, Sam
Cock. Stephanie Kuntz.
Here.
Sergio Manzala.
Here.
Okay. I'd like to have a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting agenda approved. I don't see it on here, but we need to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion, minutes of the last meeting approved. And now we'll go on with the agenda. Downtown development business. First, Dash Hospitality presentation presented by David Abes, Dash Hospitality Group.
How are you? Good. How are you doing?
Good.
So David Abes, Dash Hospitality Group. I've been in the hospitality business now for 34 years. I grew up in Atlanta, grew up right down the street in Dunwoody, and lived out in Arizona, then came back to Atlanta. Little history on me is I started with Morrison's Corporation in their casual dining. I'm right out of college. And then Pano called me and asked me to be the GM of the Atlanta Fish Market when I was 26 years old. Ran the Atlanta Fish Market during the Olympics and had an incredible time. And continued that. Then Chef Tom Catherall asked me to come run his company, So Here to Serve Restaurants. Built his company from 3 restaurants to 14 restaurants. And then a company out of New York came and courted me. And while I was working for them, Pano Caritasis, who is Buckhead Life Restaurant Group, said, hey, I want you to come be my COO. So I was working for Pano. And honestly, I really wasn't doing much. Pano is an incredible restaurateur, the best in the business. And really, it was time for me to do my own thing. And my wife said, it's time for you to start your own company. So I started Dash Hospitality Group. So Dash actually has a meaning. Has anybody ever read the poem, the Dash poem? I'll tell you about it. So the Dash poem is when you're born. So I was born in 1969. The Dash is the dash until you pass away. So there's actually a poem and it talks about what you do with the dash. And when my wife came up with that, she's like, I was like, I'll be honest, I was sitting there in tears. I'm like, this is what it's all about life and what I've done, because I love the hospitality business. I love life and all that. So anyway, so that's where we came up with Dash. Everybody thinks it's David Abes, Superior Hospitality. Really has nothing to do with that. It just really has to do with Dash Hospitality Group. So what we do, so I started this company 7 years ago. I don't know which way am I aiming. There we go. Sorry. So I started this just myself, and it was all referrals, and my phone was ringing off the hook. And I'm like, wow, I was working 24/7. And then I said, I need to bring a team in, and I'll talk about the team in a second here. But here's some things that I really focus in on about living your dash. And that's what we do every day is we have clients throughout the whole country, from California, New York, Florida. We have an international client also, and we deal with everything from startups, come fix my problems, senior living, resorts. And I'll talk about a couple of our clients that they'll highlight today. So it's pretty much everything. It's funny. Every proposal I've written has been from scratch. I've never said, hey, this is a template and we're going to just apply that to that, because it's always been something a little bit different. But our main goals that we focus on, number one, business success. All my clients have been referrals for a reason, because I feel like, hey, we're going to do them right. It's all about my clients, nothing about me. It's all, how to make them successful. And each person's a little bit different, and you're dealing with different personalities, different funds. So we get that. We understand this business is all about the guest and the community. It's not about, what you put out there. You can think you have the best product ever, but if the guests don't respond to that, then it's all for naught. We deal with permits and licensing. We do a lot of that different thing, from health department, liquor licenses, to you name it. After 34 years, we pretty much dealt with so many municipalities and all that to see what it's all, and each one's a little bit different. Menu development is another big thing that we do, because to me, it's really about the concept and what works in the community. And I'll talk about Funwoody here in a few minutes also, but it's really about the concepts. There's certain concepts that are not going to work in Doraville, and there's no reason to even bring them in here. So that's a big thing for us. Marketing and PR, it's really about how you get the word out and how you make it not just market the restaurants, market the community space, but it's how you bring people back. Because to me, it's when somebody walks into your city center and all that, they're your marketing. that's the people who said, man, I had the best time at, the Doraville City Center. So that's really what we're focusing on, is really making them like not just a one-time shop, but this is going to be their everyday hangout spot. And I think that's going to be a big focus for us with this. Systems and real estate, because a lot of people don't. They have this great concept, they don't know how to execute. So that's a big thing for us, is how we look at the systems to make sure it all flows together. And I think for this project, it's really important that between City Hall, the restaurants, the common area, the green space, it all comes together and is very active with that. So my team, myself, Phil Hanley, he's my VP of Culinary and Beverage. Him and I have worked together now 22 years. He does it all, from back of the house, front of the house, menus, concepts, all that kind of stuff. Cameron Woods is our culinary director. He has worked in California resorts, Texas. He's done restaurants. He's done a little bit of everything. And what I love about Cameron is it's back to approachability. He's not that chef where it's like, oh, I got to put a garnish on this or do that. He wants what's going to sell. And when he gets the plates back, he wants to make sure they're empty and not, okay, why is this still on the plate? So that's a big thing. Mitchell Avis is our brand manager. And a big thing for us is how we brand our concepts. How we brand everything is a very important thing. Social media, email blast, all that stuff. There's not just one thing where you come with your brand. It's how you got to be consistent about how you do your brand. Two other people, Eric Alcindor, him and I have worked together about 15 years. Same thing. He's my project manager for a lot of my different concepts. And then Jeff Golt is also a project manager, and him and I work together now coming up on 5 years. So here's some of our clients that I wanted to highlight on. The first one is the Hub, which is now called the Big Chill. Has anybody been down to 30A at all? So in between, Destin and Panama City, two gentlemen that I know approached me and said, hey, can you consult on this? They were real estate people, but had no clue about hospitality business. And they basically took this retention pond, filled it up, and then built this atmosphere, which we'll all talk about in a second. Savvy Provisions. I worked with them on our franchise group just to help them with how they're going to scale and the right things to do in their operations. That was a big systems-oriented thing. Dollywood, their new resort called Heart Song, Hirsch and family hired us to come up with the concept for the restaurant. They already had one resort, and they said, hey, okay, we want to come up with another lodge. So we were the ones who developed their concept and all that. So it was really neat to be up there. We were actually up there during, we got hired like in November. We said, oh, we'll show up in January after the holiday season. No, you have to come see December in Dollywood. And it was a wow factor. So just the amazing moving parts and all that. Fender's Diner and Community Brew and Tap. This is very similar to Cornelia, Georgia. It's up in North Georgia, right near Clayton. It was a town that really, there was nothing happening. It was really a ghost town. After 2007, the bank busted basically the whole town. And my client came and bought up all these old buildings, and he really turned it into this old diner that had been there 30 years, rejuvenated that, took a parking lot, turned it into Fender's Alley, so with a stage and a screen, and then bought the original bank building and turned it into a steakhouse called Community Brew and Tap. But you're in the middle of nowhere. It's just amazing that all these people from North Georgia have done that, have gone there. Wild Lake Brewery, we help them downtown. They're right on the Gulch, so we do a lot of their catering, their development of their kitchen and all that. And then our international brand is Black Tap. We work with, I don't know if you've heard of them. They're based out of New York. They were the ones that first do the crazy shakes. So where you see the cheesecake and all that stuff on top of a milkshake. So they're known for their burgers and shakes. And they have restaurants, Vegas, New York, Dubai, you name it, all in Miami and all that. And they've been really neat to work with also. Real quick on a case study. So the Big Chill, the Hub, why I say it's the Big Chill, the Hub, it was two partners. It started out as the Hub, and then one of the partners wanted to scale it to Texas. One didn't want to scale. He just wanted to keep it in Florida. So the gentleman who went to Texas took the concept, the Hub, and then they changed it to the Big Chill. But this is something I'm really focusing on, and when I get to phone with you, I'll talk about that also. But 7 concepts, 3 bars, big open air patio, 25-foot jumbo screen, surrounding retail around that. And here's some pictures on that. When we came up with this concept, and it's interesting because every time I've learned something new, top left is these different buildings. So one's a seafood concept, one's a burger concept, one's a taco concept. But it was really interesting because we built different kitchens. So we learned as we keep building really to consolidate the kitchens together. As you can see, it's a meeting place. It's family oriented. They do arts festivals. They do, of course, on the big screen, all the tailgating and all that stuff. So it's been really interesting with that. And it's been great. Now, when you go down to 38, it's like literally that's what you put on your stop every time you go to vacation. You're stopping at the Big Chill. So. Funwoody. I don't know if there's anybody ever been to Funwoody. So I grew up in Dunwoody. Dunwoody Village was right there at Shanley, Dunwoody, Mount Vernon. And it was an old shopping center. It was built in 1972. And I was talking to my wife saying, let's go to Roswell. Let's go to Alpharetta. I said, how is there no place in Dunwoody that people can hang out? And we were standing in the top of these stairs in this courtyard. And I'll show you a picture of that in a second. And I said, you know what we did at the hub, why can't we recreate this, even though it already had no heart, but it had the walls. So I said, you know what, let's put a heart in this place. So I presented to Regency Centers, who was a landlord, and I said, hey, I want to build multiple restaurants around this courtyard. And they were like, what? And, they were like, wow, okay. And then I went to the city of Dunwoody. I said, this is what I want to do also. And it was really interesting with Dunwoody. It was like, whose fault is it? Is it the landlord's fault? Is it the city's fault for not scaling? And finally, I think it was like pulling them together to redevelop this. First concept was called Barn. It is called Barn. It's still going, coming up on 4 years. It was an old skateboard shop, and I just repurposed the wood, and I wanted to make more like a whiskey and wine bar with charcuterie and light bites. The great thing about that, it's all open container, so all around this courtyard, and all 4 restaurants around the courtyard there. The second one was Morty's Meat and Supply. I didn't want to call it barbecue because everybody's like, is it Texas? Is it Carolina? What kind of barbecue is it? It's just more of a Americana, so North meets South kind of concept. Pinball machine. It's just a fun spot. We do a lot of catering out of there. It's just been great. Message in a Bottle is our seafood concept, seafood and sushi. I wanted people to feel like when they go to the beach, there's where they're at. So it's been really, really fun with that concept also. One thing I think that's interesting is when you tweak restaurants, what works and what doesn't work. And we had a raw bar at Mess in a Bottle. It was just an oyster display. So I'm like, what can we do differently? And so we added sushi. Last month, we were up 22% in sales, and it's amazing just the sushi sales itself, just for adding a sushi bar in there. So as we constantly tweak. Yofi is our food truck. So when I built Barn, I didn't have a full kitchen. So it was interesting. When I was going up to Cornelia, I had this food truck was on the side of the road and said Taste of Asia on it. And I went in there and I said, hey, is that food trailer for sale? And she said, you can have it. I've only used it 3 times, and sold it to me at a great price. And literally, it was never been used. So when I was coming up with the new concepts, I did it out of the food truck. So when I tested Morty's, tested Message and Bottle, now it's all those are going. So now it's called Yofi, which means it's all good. So it's our Mediterranean concept that we have in the food truck. And then I was lucky enough, there was a Brewster's location right next to the courtyard, and Regency said, hey, their lease is coming up. Will you take it? So I said, yeah, I'll definitely take that, because the parents are all hanging out. Kids are saying, hey, I want ice cream. And they were all going around, and then they're bringing back Brewster's garbage. And I'm like, okay, why can't I clean up my own garbage and that? So anyway, so what we came up with Good Vibes is it's an ice cream shop, but also has fizzies, which are these craft sodas. They're called dirty sodas. I don't know if you've heard of that concept. It's out of Utah. We have arcade games in there, and it became more of a hangout spot instead of just a transaction. I wanted people to hang out there also. So anyway, so that's Good Vibes. Here's all the concepts. As you can see, probably the left side in the middle is probably a good shot of the courtyard. We do a lot of events, and I'll get to one of our biggest events here on the left side. Good Vibes. So the murals, we have 2 big murals. One's a Funwoody mural on one side, one's a Good Vibes mural on the left side. And Instagram, social media, that's what's great, is people take their pictures in front of these signs. We actually trademarked the word Funwoody, and it's been awesome with this. In the middle at 6 o'clock, this picture, the back wall, when I built Morty's, what I want to do is I want to create the Dunwoody Wall of Fame. So we have people bring us pictures from the 70s, 80s, and 90s of their pictures from growing up. And then on the far right, if you can sort of tell, is Ryan Seacrest. So I had Dunwoody High School, their art department, do a contest. Hey, who can draw Ryan Seacrest? So it went down to 2 people. So I actually put those posters up there. But you can see people bring their old jerseys. It's been really fun with that. Bottom right is Message in a Bottle. Like I said, just a fun little spot. Live music, and we also have a big screen over there in Funwoody. Green Eggs and Kegs. So we were open for about 4 months. And our chef said, hey, he was sponsored by the Big Green Egg. And I said, let's do a festival. So we had Big Green Egg sponsor it. So coming up on our fifth year this year in April, anywheres. First year was 750 people. Next year was 1,200 people. Then we had 1,800 people. This past year we had 2,200 people. And for me, it was really about bringing the Dunwoody restaurants together, because there was no one, like everybody goes to these festivals where it's Kevin Rathburn, it's all these famous chefs, but it's not really that local flair. And that's really what I want to do, is highlight the restaurants. So the first year was only 10 restaurants. This past year we had 30 restaurants, 50 breweries and distilleries, 2 bands play, a DJ, and it all goes to a charity. So this goes to Breakthrough Type 1. My son was diagnosed with a type 1 diabetes when he was 2.5. So a big thing what we do is all our festivals, whether it's back to school, we do a lot of charity events, and I think that's a big thing, is to bring the community together and what we can do to, get people not only to have fun, but also, do it for a great cause. So here's some pictures of Big Green Eggs and Kegs. A lot of fun, just people. We tent this parking lot. Regency Centers has been a great partner with us on that. So if you look on the top right, our courtyard is where all the sales are, the colored sales. And that parking lot, we tent the whole thing. So we have vendors all out there. It all flows in between the restaurants and stuff. And it's actually during the day, which is awesome, because a lot of restaurants get invited. Oh, I want to do this event at night. But you know what? You can't leave your restaurant on a Saturday night. So we do it from 12 to 5, and it's great. Then the chefs and stuff can get back to their restaurant. So and it's just been a big hit. So like I said, it'll be our 5th year this next year. And that's it. That's my story. So anyway, I just want to talk about that. Do you have any questions about anything?
I just want to say he gave us a tour of this area, and it was hopping. It was like on a Thursday night, I think, or something. It was on
Wednesday or Thursday. Yeah, Wednesday.
Yeah, it was Wednesday or Thursday night. It wasn't like, the typical weekend night. And it was, I think we were there like at 5:30, 6 o'clock too. It was early.
Mhm.
The place was packed, and you could tell people were settling in, and they were, getting a drink. And the coolest thing to me was you can sit down in the courtyard,
Mhm.
and the waitress comes out and brings you 3 different menus. It's like you can order from any of the restaurants, and we'll bring it out to you. And so, people,
Right.
different people at the table can order. One person's ordered barbecue, somebody's ordered sushi. It's like you don't have to, pick which you're going to eat at, which
Yep.
is really cool.
And that's been a big deal for us, and it's nice, and it's interesting that the progression of the day. You get your happy hour crowd, which is some business people, office, all that, and then it's young families, and it gets older families, and becomes more single. So it's interesting to see the whole progression of the day on that, and like I said, activations and making it, being flexible, I think, is a big thing that we've really strived for there.
Anyone else have any questions?
I was going to ask, so how do you see this working in, and what would be the vision for how this fits in with the city center here in Doraville? I mean,
Yeah.
we've got a little different take on local restaurants than
Right.
most cities around. So
Yep.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the most important thing is when I developed Funwoody, I already had the walls up. For this, we can create what we need to. And I think the biggest thing is the synergy between all the concepts and make sure it all flows together. That's the thing, Doraville is always going to evolve, and you got to say, okay, what's going to be approachable for everybody to come? There's great food up and down Beaufort Highway, but the fact is also people, I think, are going to come there for the food, but I think it's also for the entertainment factors, how we activate the stages, type of music, different events. I think that's what really brings people to Funwoody itself, is we do cool, fun stuff. So I think that's the big thing. Yes, the restaurants have to be great and consistent, but I think the most important thing is we're going there for a purpose. And I think that's what we got to create there.
I got a question. I love the concept. Everything looks really, really nice. Are you going to prioritize, I guess, giving an opportunity to existing Beaufort Highway restaurants in Doraville to be able to open doors in this new concept?
Yep. I think that's one of the most important things is you got to create cheers. You got to create local. You look at these restaurateurs who come in from New York and all that stuff, it doesn't work. And I think the people in Doraville, and no matter what town you're in, you have to keep it close knit. Yeah, there might be some people from the outside, but I think mostly we got to look at who's the operators who are local to Doraville, because they're the ones who are going to create welcome. That's the most important thing is, and I know I equate Cheers all the time, but that's what you want to do is people who know what's going on. If you have somebody from the outside who has no clue about Doraville or the history or what's going on there, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So yeah, of course, I think that's a big thing is getting some feedback. But like I said earlier, we have so many great restaurants in Doraville. Just to take one and move it into this, I don't know if that would work per se, because I think somebody's looking for something a little bit different.
Anyone else? Yeah, David, I wanted to say that, let me see, the restaurants that you went to when you had started, I had a lot of great meals at all of them, including the Hannah and Paul's and
Yep.
some of the other restaurants, and a lot of great memories. And I was actually at 30A about 6 weeks ago.
Okay.
And I didn't eat at, but I rode the bicycle past that area that you just
Okay,
mentioned,
yeah,
very chilled, is very, very, very nice. And I think that integrated well with that area. And so I think everything the presentation comes up is very, very competent and very creative. And I think you've done great jobs every place. Do you see like a challenge, like the particular area of Doraville in this corridor right off of Beaufort Highway and where the city center is that this would probably be the most integrated, and I wouldn't say what's the best way to express this. Let's say like a higher tier of restaurant experience. I don't know whether you'd agree or not, but the typical restaurant experience for a long, long time is like small, family owned, et cetera.
Right.
And that's just the nature of it. Some are good, some are not so good, but it's evolved that way. So how would that kind of shoehorn in? Obviously, we have more residential development, more retail development coming in, and probably for that particular area, it would be like a very good fit. But as far as integrating with the rest, is that a challenge? And I'm not saying it's either good or bad. I'm very, I liked your presentation, very optimistic about it. But is that some thought that you've given? It's somewhat related to the question that he had. And it's just, is that seen as a challenge? And I know that maybe some of the areas that you may have done where you went into like a smaller town, and I don't know what their tourism level was, et cetera, but maybe it revitalized their like downtown. Do you kind of see the same thing where it's more tied to Doraville Center? Like there's one place. Is that how you kind of envision it, or is that still in process?
Well, I mean, there's a lot in process. I mean, just, diving in over the last, week or two, just looking to see what it is. But I think it's important to have it, like I keep saying about the synergy. I think it all needs to play together. But like, it's really interesting because I worked in Buckhead for so many years.
Yeah.
A Buckhead restaurant wouldn't work in Dunwoody. You have to be realistic about that. That's just not what it is. The hotels, all that stuff is not there. The business is not there. You got to see what your demographics are and who's there. And also you have to make sure there's a certain threshold for people's price point, what they're going to spend when they go out. Because, if you put a high-end steakhouse in here, it would not work. I mean, it just wouldn't work. So the fact is, especially with the economy and what's going on, you have to think 2, 5, and 10 years from now. And I think and I say approachable because I think that's the most important thing. Approachable and unique. I'll use Morty as the example. I had a grab-and-go cooler. And then I had a client up in Blue Ridge who had a pinball bar. And and I'm like sitting there watching these people playing pinball. I said, you know what? Why not put pinball machines where that grab-and-go cooler is? And you know what? Now it activates the space even more and makes it more fun. And it's been incredible because of that. So I think that's the thing is you got to look at is what's going to bring people there. And yes, I think the quality of food and something different, I think is super important, but you can't make it too upscale because I don't think that would work. I just don't think that's what, the clientele wants. I mean, I think they want something they can come. Okay, kids that can run around, they can do this. I think, we've talked about some containers. You got to do different things. It can't just be they're just coming for the restaurants. They're coming for, the whole thing.
Yeah.
No, and you got a point that, over time, this could definitely change, depending on the price point of the housing that gets built in this area. If a hotel came in, that might change what you did there because then you'd have people from out of town looking for a different experience that maybe, they are looking for something kind of unique. And so, the way, I'm impressed that, you see the flexibilities needed.
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, I want people to make a day or night of it. So like, here's my progression of they start a barn, they have drinks, maybe an appetizer, then they're going into Mesh and Bottle for dinner. Then they might go to Morty's for a nightcap. I want to keep all my guests in that same spot. And I think that's what we want to do is we want to make sure that they all coexist in the right way. Because I want, you know what? Because it's funny when I go out to a restaurant and somebody says, "Oh, David, I'm, cheating on you at another restaurant." I'm like, no, you're not, because I'm here also. But you have to be realistic. You're not going to come to my restaurants every day. But I think it's important. What I love is when I see people there who are there for 5-6 hours, and you know what? They spent the whole night and they've had a great time, listen to music and watch some football games. So I think that's what we got to create is what's going to be good to complement each other, those concepts.
Any other questions?
I was going to continue on. So one of the defining factors of the Beaufort Highway corridor is so much of the cuisine here is based on the immigrant community. I mean, for instance, we don't have a good burger joint here. There isn't a burger
No, you're right.
on Beaufort Highway because, frankly, nobody really needs one. I think we are all very cognizant of the desire to maintain that immigrant influence in the community and the diversity of that. And so how does that fit with what your notion would be? I mean, for instance, obviously on the other side of this, we probably don't need another taco stand here either because there are already plenty of them. So I guess I'm curious, like, what is your notion of what types of ideas, and I don't want to hold you to these, but spitball and kind of what are some ideas that might work?
I mean, what are the top 3 foods that people eat in America? You already hit it, right? Burgers, pizza, Italian, right? Chicken, and tacos. Those are the 4. So those are the 4 things that people eat. So, it is, I mean, you see these restaurants these days and they're all evolving into, it's not just, a taco stand per se or not a burger place. So it's really, yes, I want to do some creative stuff, but I want, as people's palates change, I think, we have to have that stuff that's, that is more mainstream. But with a twist, I think that's going to be a big thing. I mean, there's going to be some casual, there's going to be some sit down, there's going to be rooftop bars. I mean, that's what I want people to feel is I want people to feel like we're not in Dorville anymore. I want them to feel like they're in someplace different, even though they see, the logo and all that. So they know that, but I want them to feel like, hey, this is a different part of Dorville where I feel safe. I can come, I can be entertained, and I can spend a whole day or night there. So.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you all. Nice to meet y'all. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. Next item, council appointment of board terms presented by Shanta Bingham.
Good evening, everyone. So in July, the mayor and council, they adopted the terms for the DDA. Please note that after reviewing the resolution, I noticed an error on the resolution with board member Skylar Clark's term, excuse me. So we will correct it and then bring it back to council soon. But he has been appointed for a 4-year term, so it will end September 2029. And that's all I have, but the terms are as follows. Doug Edwards, September 30th, 2027. Sergio Monsalvo, September 30th, 2027. Harold Shin, September 30th, 2029. Steffi Kuntz, she's a council member, so her term actually ends with her seat, which will be December 31st, 2025. Sam Koch, September 30th, 2025. Skylar Clark, as I mentioned, we will correct that and bring it back to council, which will be September 30th, 2029. And James Kim, September 30th, 2029. Any questions for me? Okay.
I had a question. So Steffi, with your council member seat, if that ends, would simultaneously this seat?
Yes.
If I run for reelection, I wouldn't stay on.
Okay,
Yes.
but could you stay on independent of the council, or is that something that would have to be done by council? Yeah.
You have to figure out like what role would play. Let's see.
Yeah.
Chris Henshaw's is very interested in being the rep for the council.
Mhm.
I think he'll do a great job.
Mhm.
He's been in training. He's been in meetings with it.
Mhm.
Has meetings, some of the ones we've had. But I'm hoping that we can figure out a way for me to stay on the DDA.
And so once that happens, that's when we'll make the correction to the resolution and just make it all cohesive, and gel even better. So, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Any questions?
And just one last note, the minutes were item D.
Oh, yeah, I jumped ahead because I thought, oh, they missed it, but now I saw it there. So,
I think we're okay doing.
thank you, Shanta. Okay, next item, Downtown Development Authority participation in the city center presented by Steffi Kunz.
This is something that I presented to the city council at the last meeting, and the council was all aboard. They're ready to go on this. And if you look at our fund balance here, we've got the DDA has $686,000 in the bank that we've discussed, what kind of project that we as the Downtown Development Authority can do for the city of Doraville. And talking with the city manager, and I was kind of hoping Gary would stay around, but he had to go. And it was something we've talked with this David about, that just did the presentation, about doing some sort of, it might even be temporary kind of, I don't know whether it's going to be food trucks or whether it would be shipping container kind of kitchens, or some kind of entrepreneurial startup kind of a opportunity that would be next to or integrated with this new town center, that people could, you've got, because to me, I don't see it as being a conflict with like a sit down restaurant. Because I know if I'm going out to go eat at a sit down restaurant, I'm not going to go, oh, there's a food truck, let's eat there. It's a different dining experience. You're not going out for that. And the food trucks would be good for, they may not be there all the time. They may just be there for events. They may be there on the weekends. The pads could be used for, art festivals, that sort of things too, that, they could set tents up. And the main thing that, I've learned is that makes it a fairly easy lift, is all the food trucks require is electricity. They don't need water, sewer, anything like that. And obviously you've seen the food truck kind of events where they don't even have electricity. They just run their generators. But to me, that's a kind of a not a pleasant experience, to be sitting around with a bunch of gasoline fumes and generators running and the noise and all that stuff. And if we had a way that, similar to like an RV, where they can pull up and there's a electrical box there that they can plug in their 220, and they don't have all the noise and fumes and all that stuff, and have some sort of a, outdoor dining area central to it, that could even be just a gravel kind of lot with picnic tables and, a stage where a band could play. Woodstock's got a similar kind of area. They've got like this big, amphitheater for big name shows, but then they've got a smaller just stage area with a little roof over it that has local bands come out and play on the weekends. And then they have the food trucks come out, but out there they don't have power for the food trucks. So you got generators running and everything. And it's, to me, not as pleasant experiences I'd like to see us create. And Chris, do you have anything on this? I know one of the things we want to be cognizant of is we've got a development partner for the downtown, and they've got a vision. We've got an architect that has done this sort of thing. They did they've done these kind of shipping container food service things in different areas. So they're well aware of like what's needed to make this work.
Yeah, there's opportunities, and that's a nice, David is contracted through Kaufman to give that insight. Because that's the other thing, he operates restaurants, so he knows what it would feel like to have something on the outside. So to try to balance that together. But if you've been on the Beltline, they've got several businesses are in shipping containers, do something different. So these are things we're looking at doing just outside the footprint of that kind of quad where the city center will be. So, yeah, the support definitely need it.
Is this
Budget's
like
gonna be tight.
pre or post construction?
It has to be post grading. So, let's just say we're in a race right now to try to pull all these pieces together. Because council just approved the People's Building, that's the library, city, cafe space. But we would really like to get at least two of these other pads going. So that's what David's here for. That's what Gary's here for. Because you really don't want to get back in there tearing stuff up to build those buildings on those other corners. So we're in the process of working that really hard. Gary's working that really hard, and working the financing on that as well. Because the way, again, moving forward, there may be some mechanisms where these properties go to one of our authorities and set up the leases for those sites, because we, as the city, really needs private investment for those. City does not have the ability to build those shell buildings financially. So it's a lot going on. The support of the DDA is great. And doing something like this could help fuel that. So you've got two different places. One is kind of on the side where the retention pond and pool is, just kind of orienting you on the site. The other would be across from the library at that street level, where we're looking at temporary parking. It's up there where it used to be the old CPAX building, whatever, up there. So yeah, all this is great. Welcome. I mean, council's excited to get some help, and yeah, to be able to get something active and going would be great.
Chris, approximately how large a lot would that be? I don't know, visualize how large that would be.
Yeah, I mean, over there, it'd be close to half an acre.
Okay.
I mean, it's a nice flat area, and as Steffi said, I mean, you just run power. That's a nice thing. Any of these, you're not looking at water, especially if it is food trucks, you're doing some kind of festival, special event. That's the other thing we've talked about. Maybe it's not all the time, but you have it set up to where people can pull in and show up, because maybe they don't make money Monday to Thursday.
And typically, if
They do on the
you'd have a
weekend.
concentration of semi-permanent locations stubbed out, that would be a portable toilet and hand wash facilities, or we do an install, or depends on how much it costs?
That's possible as well. We have the building designed, the People's Building, to where we can lock down sections to where you'd have access to the restrooms after hours. So that would help. But the other's great.
The other,
So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Another idea, and I can't remember which council member threw this out. I don't know if y'all went to any of the Movie Under the Stars events over at the new Assembly Park, and they had a really nice mobile bathroom that was like air conditioned. It was more of a trailer, and it gets away from that whole like nasty porta potty kind of experience, where it's an actual restroom.
Mhm.
And they were saying, somebody asked, would that be something the DDA would be interesting in managing, for the city to be able to host events like this
Mhm.
and have a, more of an upscale, atmosphere when people come out to it, that it's like, oh, this is nice. I can bring my wife and my kids and they're not grossed out, or, I have no idea what something like that costs. And, if you,
Justin knows how much it is to rent them.
that's what I'm saying. And instead of the city having to rent them,
Mhm.
which then becomes this festival isn't that big of a deal. Maybe we just go with a porta potty, if it was something that the DDA, bought and maintained for this kind of use. And I think that goes, I mean, the attorney could correct me, but this kind of goes into the idea that the Downtown Development Authority is helping to activate the downtown. And it's something that does bring a lot more upscale kind of feel to events that people remember and tell their friends about. Hey, this is a nice event. You should come to it, instead of, yeah, we threw up in the bathroom, or,
Well, this is the first time you actually have some cash,
Mhm.
600,000 or so. And then in 2 or 3 years, you did the incentive across the road there on Beaufort Highway at the old UAW building. That's going to throw off $500,000 a year. So, and that is supposed to benefit city center. Y'all
Mhm.
earmarked it that way. So, it is time when you can start making a difference and being a
A
DDA.
contributor.
For
A true
me-
And by
DDA.
doing food trucks or food truck stalls or however you want to call it, you also avoid the whole deal of dealing with grease traps and dealing with DeKalb County and yeah, see,
Mhm.
restaurant owners over here
Yeah.
smirking.
Mhm.
No, it's a nightmare and and they're crazy expensive. And we could probably afford to purchase like this nice mobile bathroom thing for the cost of what some grease traps would run installed and, maintain and all of that. So
Is there,
these are just ideas. We don't have anything in concrete, but that was what I was saying to the council and getting their approval on is, are you okay with this general idea of the DDA using their resources to fund something in this vein to be able to support, events and food trucks and, a festive, activities in this new downtown area and making it more upscale appearance, active or thing.
And part of and Steffi will tell you, I try to sandbag a little bit money wise. We may just need you to help finish the project. I don't know. We're still in the process of costing it out. Choate's working through that. So, or we come in under budget and we've got money to throw together. So, but we should have numbers in the next month for construction costs, and we'll have a real idea.
So Chris and Steffi, so my understanding is that not just the idea, but how it would be laid out, the cost, the type of equipment, et cetera. City's already doing this. And so at that point, it's just DDA, hey, DDA, can you help fund this? So we don't need to make like a small working group to research this or anything like that.
No,
Okay.
No, the
Just be
city's doing,
safe,
that's
please.
what the development
Okay.
partner's doing.
hand out, please help. Yeah.
is there a hesitancy to put in a more permanent bathroom structure? Is there a reason for
Yeah.
that? Is
Oh,
it-
definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Just because we don't know.
Okay.
And you'd hate to drop in, $500,000 on something that you tear down. So the long-term plan is you will have, y'all all seen the plan. So you've got the green, you got that, there's a road. Well, there's another parcel to develop, and that's where we'd be looking at possibly doing something like this on. But the same thing, if you flip a switch and everybody's all excited, the city sell it and somebody build on it and develop something else there.
Right.
That could be the hotel pad. So that's
So the
part of the
example-
thing. How it was done was to allow council the flexibility to develop we call it developable blocks.
Mhm.
So you could do one and then the other and the other and the other. So just providing that flexibility as markets change and what's able to get built. So.
For
Understood.
me, I'm excited to like kickstart, the development of that. But personally, for me to, say yes to something, I'm a visual guy. I'm not sure about everybody else, but I want to see what that looks like before I can, put a stamp on that, personally. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And that would come back. I think the whole thing is, I think board members asking, is there support to participate and be a part in this? And this
absolutely.
would be a possible way to
Like,
do
is there a way that we can also kind of be part of that, idea being thrown out so we can, if we're going to be saying yes or no to something, we want to have, and I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I want to have, a general idea and maybe some key points here and there.
Yeah. See a concept. Yeah.
Correct.
No,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
the ask tonight from me isn't to say, yeah, this is the final vote, and then they to go off and do whatever they're gonna do. It's more, is this something we're interested in doing or being a part of so that they're not wasting their time, designing something or coming up with some kind of plan if we've got no interest in even looking at it? You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And to Chris's point, one of the ideas of doing like this portable bathroom or doing this more low-key, non-permanent installation where, hey, we're just running some power. It's not a whole, we're not spending, so we're not gonna spend 600K doing this. This is gonna be a pretty low-key thing. Of that is that block is gonna be something else in 10 years, maybe 5 years. But I also don't want to have just an empty lot over there that's dirt for that 5 years either. And for example, like the lot that's on the Morton Station side of the town center, we're going to be using it for surface parking. And so it's going to get paved and be, all cleaned up and striped and everything and be a nice parking lot. But the idea is that somebody's going to come in the future and buy that and build a parking deck underneath some building that's going to then be, a bigger development. But at this time, we don't have the money to build a parking deck. And so, you know, it's going to grow, but in the interim, you have to do like I call it interim redevelopment, where you just, you have something there short term. This isn't going to be a long-term solution. And then again, if we have some kind of a mobile restroom, it can be moved somewhere else.
Would these spots be rented out to these mobile food trucks?
Yeah, it would be, and that's the
Hmm.
other part. So,
Hmm.
when we're looking at these pads, um, council will have to flip it to either the DDA or the URA or someone else, because to make it work, it can't be market rate. So same thing. I mean, the council gets this, and we've discussed it many times. The most important part about the city center is it be a success.
Mhm.
And it's challenged to make it success if you saddle people with huge leases. So, the idea is to be creative, allow somebody to get started, allow somebody to be successful, and then go from there. So, lease structures we've contemplated, maybe there's nothing, there's an upfront, and then it's a percentage of your gross after a break-even amount or something like that, to allow somebody to get going. The reason why it gets flipped to one of the authorities is you're able to do that. The council cannot. So it's just the way the state law is.
There's like this gratuities clause where the government
Give
has to
something away.
like lease it to somebody for what the going market rate or whatever is. But the DDA can say, you know what, we see value in, letting 6 food trucks come to this event for no cost because they're going to bring people and bring things. The DDA can do that.
Which
Or
is-
we can say, you know what, this event's so popular, we got 25 food trucks wanting to come for 6 spots. We can make, the DDA can make a little bank off this.
But that's why that's in your name, downtown
Right.
development.
Mhm.
So that's
Well-
what you're tasked with doing.
Event center, or city center is like so I've done like food trucks or done events, expos and fairs. And I also own restaurants. So this event center, you're trying to do it like once or twice a year, or how many times do you plan on doing this, or is it like a permanent?
That's something we're going to count on David Avis with Dash and others to give us the idea of what model works the best. I will say it may, and again, that's the hard part. Everybody wants to know exactly what's going on. But if we only get 2 restaurant pads done and the other one's sitting empty, and maybe we put the foundations in and it's just a concrete pad, then maybe you want to create more life with more food trucks.
But you don't have half an acre.
On the other,
This,
for this portion, it would be, yes. Yes. So you're not talking a huge sea of,
so it's
No.
not a very big, so you can't put,
the project's big.
the project's big, but the overall,
Footprint of what's being discussed, yes.
yeah.
It's auxiliary to the core.
Yeah, it's not very big, so you can, food truck probably wouldn't work there if you only can only put a few trucks.
Yeah, it's just how you lay it out. I mean,
Acres.
David mentioned one time, plenty of towns do the farmer's market where you have people come in, not like the farmer's market that I explained
No,
that we
yeah.
already have,
Understood.
but a little
Yeah.
market, something like that, something unique. And and that could be truly unique, and food, I'm sure, would be a part of it. So Yeah, I mean, it's, and the same thing, we cannot hurt the core restaurants that are there either. So it's all about, like David said, curating what you have. I mean, that's the biggest part that I've learned is you got to curate like he did over there in Dunwoody. You don't have three of the same type restaurants. You have ones where people can bounce around and go different ones. So, it's all about building that.
So Chris and Steffi said the idea is we have a pad for food trucks that will run before the city center is finished and run concurrently with the city center. And then when something better comes up one day, that'll be cleared out and used for a better purpose. Is that?
And
is
it
that
needs to
what
be
you said?
flexible kind of space where, these same pads, they got power there. Maybe they also have tent tie downs built into the concrete too, so that you can have an arts festival and people got a place to tie their tents
Mhm.
down, and you could, there's not food trucks, there's
Well,
there's an art
yeah.
festival.
And we've got plans. We'll have sleeves where you can bollard off the roads and we can close all those roads around there. If you have a big festival, close it all down like they do at the Battery.
Mhm.
You leave some open, you close others down. I mean, we're trying to be as flexible as possible.
But the way it's envisioned, that the area for the pads
I wish we had
will be
draw.
walkable to or
Yeah, yeah.
proximate to the city center where they're
Absolutely.
Dash is envisioning the entertainment / restaurant / whatever.
Yep.
Now, I know they've already left, but they're also very much aware of this as well.
Right.
Oh, yeah. And that's
Okay.
why we want them in, and same with, I don't know how deep in the weeds you want to get, but so we'll have a stage out over the green for larger events. So we even talked about over on Park, the stage will face Park, like from over where the swimming pool is back towards Park. That could be a plaza area as well. You shut down Park, and we may have a couple stub outs with electricity there. So you have a really big event. That's where somebody's selling snow
Mhm.
cones or whatever.
Yeah.
And can plug in there. Same with doing a couple of pads near the stage. That's where you go buy a beer, pretzel, or whatever. So, trying to plan all these things the best we can. And it's been cool working with the architects and landscape architects, even the vision of the stage from the envisioned buildings and how that looks. And then me being the nerd and pushing back a little bit, say, all right, but still leave space between the buildings so those can be activated when you don't have the big event, because the big event we know ain't going to be every night. So trying to balance all these competing interests is tough. And then we all sit and argue in a room, and then hopefully we come out with
Mhm.
something that
I think in answers to Steffi's question, I think generally everybody's for the idea. They just want to know what it looks like and how much it'll cost.
And that will actually be at a future meeting.
Okay.
Yep. And we can pull that. I mean, that's to say it's all being worked on now. And, the big focus was designing the green. We're still in the process of finalizing that. And then the building. Council has approved the building. That's a huge hurdle to get past, to get 7 people to agree on a 4-story building design was huge, a happy moment. So that's big. And then we move towards the other things. So.
It sounds like what you guys are trying to create, like the Lawrenceville, the stadium. They had the stadium, and then they had the park, and then they had the event there.
Yeah, and even like our council, we visited Swanee, and everybody goes there Swanee now, and like, oh, this is great, but it's been a 20-year process
Mhm.
of getting to where they are now, and we don't know. We just know we need this first bite of the apple to be successful, to be viable, and may go, and then we'll get growth from there and redevelopment. That's the other hope. Decision at the very beginning, the city council said, quit looking at everybody else's property, just work on ours. City's got 13 acres. That's what we pulled back to. We worked on. We know there's adjacent properties that we'll probably redevelop at some point in time.
Well, they kind of want to look at other people's property, like the mistakes, the pros and cons, the mistake they made, and
I meant adjacent to our actual project here. Prior councils had shown somebody else's property being redeveloped. And they're like, what are you doing? Tell me what I'm going to do with my property. So we pulled it back.
When they had the downtown project, they had put the city hall on the Salvation Army property. It's like, you don't even own the property. What are you doing paying an architect to
Ticked
design
off
a
a
building to be
church,
built
too.
on property you don't even own. And then the Salvation Army's like, we don't want to sell the property. So it killed the whole project. And so, and again, the reason I'm bringing this forward is I learned from my years of being on the city council that when you have a concept, whether it's a zoning change or whether it's a new, we want to make smoke-free Doraville or what, some of the other things we've done, we have a work session process, and that's kind of what I'm treating this as, is you get a general consensus if the board has any interest in doing it. Because if they don't, there's no point in wasting a bunch of everybody's time, completely developing, like, to your point, Sergio, about like, I want to see pictures, because I'm a visual person too, but I don't want somebody, spending $5,000 on a bunch of drawings and stuff that it's like, well, where's this? We've never heard of this. Why is this in front of us? You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to make sure that there was kind of a general thing that, yes, we want to be part of this downtown development and do something that we can put our name on.
Yeah, I think, I mean, for my part, I think this is exactly the sort of project that DDA needs to take on to help with the city center. I think this is a really good use of our powers and our time as and the authority to aid council and aid the city in doing this. I do share some Sergio's reservations on just we'd like to see more as it goes along, obviously. But yeah, count me in for it. I think this is a great use of money, and that's really our role, is to develop the downtown, and this is exactly in that wheelhouse. So I feel like this is a very appropriate use of our abilities. So.
I've seen places where they've done permanent things and then they've done temporaries, where they've done permanent, as in what you're talking about. They have shows every day and they have restaurants in there every day. It's like a food hall, but then they also have a theater where they have a 25-foot TV, and then they do that every day, and it's the restaurants there all the time.
Yep. Well, Greenville's got Gather GVL, and it's kind of that setup. So, and it's just, it's balancing all that out against the other. So, it's.
So right now, they haven't decided on what they want to do yet, right?
No, but it's safe. If there's an interest, we know there's possible funding source. We can look at a footprint and how it would all complement each other. I think that's the best word, complement.
Compliment. Yeah, exactly.
My English degree at work.
Any other questions? All right.
No.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Okay. Oh. Next item, we've already approved the minutes. We've got budget finance update presented by China Agu.
Good evening. I first just kind of want to talk about, we've never really sat down and talk about tax abatements on all the properties that we have currently. So the first sheet I have in front of you is the tax abatements for 2024. I will update 2025 later in the year, just in case if there's any appeals or anything of that nature. The first two are for assembly. The first one is Sturda Simmons. As you know, they only get taxed on the land there, and it's on a tiered schedule. So, the assessed value is 40% of the value of the property. Well, for them, it's 35%, and this is in year 6. And as time goes on, it'll go up to 40, 45 until it reaches 65%. And that goes on for 30 years. This year on the tax abatement for the city itself, we gave $157,880, which was giving away a part of the tax abatement. The next one is Doraville 60, which is, the studio site. This is the property's valued at over $303 million. And it's also on the same schedule as the Sturda Simmons. And it also, assessed value also tapers down 40%, but then 35% of the 40% over the next 30 years until we get to year 13, which it caps out at 65 until year 30, and then it'll just go back on the tax roll as normal. The next one we have is the Lumen property. This is year 1 for the Lumen property. It's at 100% tax abatement for 20 years. In lieu of that tax abatement, we do get administrative fee of $160,000 a year. And then we got a bond issuance fee of about $78,000 for the first year that the bond was issued. The next one is the Buford Highway, Lotus Grove. That one also is at 100% for 20 years. We do get a $30K administrative fee, but that does not start until the property is built. So right now, I think it's scheduled for 2027, but we all know they're having some issues, so we don't know when that will actually be completed. I just kind of want to get this in front of you guys so you guys can see how much money that we are actually putting back into these properties as we give tax abatements, and going forward, when we're thinking about giving tax abatements to other properties, just take this in consideration as what we're actually putting back in.
China, I think it's very helpful. And you said, like you said, this is the first time it's been presented in totality. And so we could reasonably expect something like this third quarter every year, approximately?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that there's no appeals or anything like that that'll change the values.
Mhm.
And also, I forgot to mention on the Assembly CERTA, they also have a pilot payment
Mhm.
that is also as well. It's not listed on here that I give out every year as well.
Okay. Any questions?
I think this is great. Thank you.
Great.
This is
You're welcome.
good information to have.
And the next thing I want to bring to you is the 2025 budget, where we are. Fund balance, as you all know, that we already have $686,000 in fund balance. And we've, most of our expenses are on legal fees. And then if you guys travel or anything like that. So, and we've only spent about $44,000 this year. And then the 2026 budget, of course, is just the administrative fee from Lumen. It's just balanced 160,000, and then expenses just match. I put more on professional services for legal fees or whatever have you that the DDA want to do throughout the year.
Any questions on this? Anyone? China, on the expenditures that have been budgeted but not yet spent,
Yes.
could you just give a general understanding to the board what advertising expenses were spent
None
or
was
are
spent.
planning to be spent?
There's none. I just put it there just
Okay,
in
okay.
case, because I don't
Understood.
know. Yeah, I don't
Okay.
know. We haven't really talked about what you guys want to do in the future.
Oh,
so I just-
understood. Is that the same case for travel dues and fees and general supplies and materials, or historically have those been, that's based on a historical figure?
Yeah, most of it's historical figure. I put a little bit more in travel because we do have a conference and we have some newer members on the board
Mhm.
that, you know, if this case they want to take advantage of those conferences, the DDA would pay for it.
Okay. And on the fiscal year 2026, the increase in professional fees, is that just a ballpark increase or that's an anticipated increase?
So that's just a ballpark increase. I doubt that you guys will spend that much unless you take a part of anything in the future. But like you said, on 2025, you see we've only spent $44,000 in the year, and that's just mostly legal fees.
Okay. And just out of personal curiosity, and like how, is it the case where the budgeted amount, there is no incentive for anyone either on board or on staff to, once it's been budgeted, to meet the budget? Is there or is there not? I
No.
know in some types of government structures, that seems to be the case where an amount is budgeted and they say, hey, we budgeted an amount, we might as well spend it on something, but that's not the case.
No.
Okay.
It goes right into fund balance.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And then in our fiscal year is calendar year,
Nope, it's the same year as the cities,
which is
October 1.
ending October 1.
Well, it ends on September 30th.
September
because
30th.
October
Okay.
1st.
Understood. Anyone have any additional questions? I had a question on, and I think if nobody has any questions for China, thank you.
Okay.
I had Ben, on the tax abatements, if you could explain in the simplest way possible, because the board, this is what we've been doing. And so now we have a dollar figure where it's presented of what these tax abatements have amounted to date. How is a good way to think about that in terms of, okay, this is it's kind of like what the city or county gave up this or gave this to the people who wanted to develop these properties as an incentive to develop them. So in terms of what was given up and what was received, I know it's kind of a dynamic thing because, if these abatements weren't given, maybe these projects would never have been started. So what's a good way to think about that? In other words, because sometimes when you look at this, at least for me, it's hard to put a number or a figure like in some others like ROI or something like that. So from a development, a DDA development standpoint, from a city standpoint on how you want to develop things, is there a good way that you can kind of say, okay, we feel as though this is coming along?
That's a really good question. Most of these deals happened before I was involved with the board, so I can give you some general thoughts on it. There are business and there are also legal sort of considerations when you're talking about property tax abatement. And you're right. So what China has prepared shows a couple of things. It shows, property taxes that have been given up by taxing authorities. The DDA is not a taxing authority. In other words, you don't have the ability to levy property taxes. That's not within the powers of this body. So it's showing taxes that have been given up by the city, by the county, by the school district, those entities that actually levy taxes. So on one hand, those are costs or reductions in revenues that are borne by the taxing authorities. And so those numbers are important, in particular to the taxing authorities. And I think they are mindful of what's given up to build projects. There are also revenues that these deals produce for the DDA. Most of them involve fees and other consideration for the DDA. So you have sort of two things going on. You have taxing authorities giving up property tax, and you have the DDA for its services and its role in the transactions receiving issuance fees and other consideration for doing that. In terms of how to think about, and Harold, if you can redirect my line of thinking here, but in terms of how to think about that, we started to put in place a more organized way of going through these property tax abatement transactions going forward, precisely to think about those kinds of issues. And I would say that the kinds of issues that we should be thinking about are, what is the project that we're trying to incentivize? What is needed to incentivize this project? How is this project different from another? And what is the amount that is necessary to incentivize this particular project? And I think that the application process that Cecil has been working on and that the board has put in place and allows us to go through that as a board now as we look at new projects that come online. And so you're right. What's that metric for the project? I don't know what the answer for the DDA is, but we have in place now a process where the DDA can evaluate that, can look at capital investment, can look at jobs that are coming in, can look at other benefits that this particular project provides to the community, and can make a determination about what is it that we need to do to seal this deal and make sure this project happens in our community.
And I know one of the things we put in place when we did this application process was, when you were part of this, when we decided that the applicant has to pay to have these studies done, and you show us why you need an abatement. Like, show us the numbers, show us why. And because in the past, they would just come kind of kicking the tires, trying to see if, what can we get? And we give, and I think some of these abatements got approved without any real hard numbers about why this level of abatement was even given to them.
Mhm.
And I know that I've heard through the staff that there have been a couple of people coming to City Hall, kind of kicking tires about getting abatements. And when they're said, well, here, we can just say,
Application.
here, you need to go, here's the forms you need to fill out. And here's the study that you need done, and come back with the numbers, and you never hear from them again. They were just trying to see what they could get for free.
Mhm.
And then they've moved forward with the project without an abatement because they were just trying to see, hey, can I get something for free?
Mhm.
And we're not doing that anymore.
Mm.
And so I think we sent the right message by doing this application process that didn't exist in the past. And thanks Cecil and putting this thing together for us so that it does kind of gate off.
I agree very much. I think one of the challenges of this is that we're sort of weighing the monetary hit versus the intangibles of the development. And there's so many intangibles, even on all these that are there. Would we have another development that would have happened at that assembly if there had not been an abatement? And these are things we'll never know because what is passed is
Right.
passed. And the situation now is obviously different than it was when these were passed. And I think most of us were not involved in these when they were initially set up. But yeah, that balance to me seems like a much easier thing to look at when we have hard data like this, and we can actually see what is that dollar amount and what it's been in historically. And then also, again, your process, which helps give us better information to make these decisions on. And I think that is really key going forward. I think we've reached a point as in the authority that I think we're less inclined to just hand something out as it's asked, but we want to see a little more what that actually means. What's that going to do for the city, and what is it actually going to cost the city? So
I think we need to historically kind of look at too. I mean, I feel like that the abatement that was done with Lumen, for example, was probably a good one. That this area over here was pretty dead. It had this horrible shopping center that had been vacant for decades almost. And, there was the club next door and the other things going on in this area. And I feel like that Lumen getting built here is probably what made the people across the street over at Van Fleet decide, hey, this is a good area to build some townhouses. And now they came in and did all that townhouse redevelopment, no abatement, but it was because of the halo effect from this project. And that's when you can kind of go, hey, this worked. And it was, one of the reasons that we, were interested in doing the abatement on the property at the old Union Hall building. It had been on Beeford Highway. It had been vacant for decades, and it's right across the street from our new downtown. That getting that property activated is, giving them an abatement is a cheap way of activating where the downtown's going to be built. And those are the kind of thought processes we need to go through,
And hopefully the application process does that and gives you data from these studies and reports. And that's why you're appointed to this board, is to make some of those decisions about what do we need to do for this area. So our job is to make sure you have data and a process, and so that you can make good decisions.
Thanks for bringing that up here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You had a question?
No.
Yeah. One question in relation to that, and I guess the DDA or bodies that have given tax abatements have been active in the Metro Atlanta area for how long, do you think?
Decades. I've been doing this almost 30 years.
The terms are usually 20 to 25 years. Is that correct? The most common?
I would say in the metro area, they're typically shorter than that.
Okay.
Fulton County has a standard sort of 10-year process, but again, they can be done in different ways, and communities do them in different ways.
On some of the developments that have spanned, let's say 20, 25 years, is it possible that you could have had a tax abatement for development that started off well, but let's say at year 15, year 20, toward the end of the abatement period, it actually starts to decline again for whatever reason, demographic reasons, for economic reasons, whatever. And then toward the end of the tax abatement period, you're kind of stuck with, wow, it started off great, but now we're kind of stuck with something that's really nobody wants to go in here. is it then possible that you kind of do it again to incentivize another development? Like, and I don't know the details of this particular one, but I know when Mercedes-Benz Stadium was constructed, and then I was curious how the Georgia Dome was only less than 25 years, less than 25 years old, I think. And that was, in the city and the revenue, and it's a great new stadium, but it's like, I don't know if how that was structured, but then you had something that only lasted 25 years.
Yeah.
And it was a huge, construction, and it's just completely leveled. And now it's, something else. So it's just kind of an ongoing, whoever is there at the time decides that this would be worthwhile. Is that
I think that's
the way you can think about it?
I think that's right. And I think you bring up a good point that the longer the abatement, the longer you do a deal, the more uncertainty about how that's going to pay off in the long run.
Mhm.
And so if you have a 20, 25-year abatement and you get towards the end of it, most communities will not simply grant another abatement on the same property.
Mhm.
But if there is a substantial rehabilitation or some additional, there's usually something else that we want to incentivize. So we don't just want to continue to provide a tax abatement to a property that's not being maintained or is failing. But if someone wants to come in and invest, improve, revitalize, that is more along the lines of what the DDA's mission and purpose is. And so potentially there's another opportunity to look at additional incentives at that point in time. But that's all part of the discussion and decision and how long those abatements go out to begin with, that I think we'll have the opportunity to think more closely about for future deals.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions on this? No?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the assembly update presented by Shay Gibson. Oh,
Justin Campbell.
Justin Campbell.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I won't stand in for Jay today.
Okay.
But nice to meet you. My name's Justin Campbell. I'm the Vice President of Studio Operations at Assembly. Nice to meet most of you for the first time, stuff we know well. Just wanted to give you, wanted more concrete data to be able to give to you today regarding the one of the last city benefits for the purchase sale agreement of Assembly. We've kind of ticked off the boxes throughout the last year in the development for most of them. The last standing issue is a pedestrian ramp, an ADA accessible ramp from New Peachtree Road down to Motors Industrial. If you're driving south on Motors past Assembly on the right, there's a large tree canopy. You've got New Peachtree up top, down to Motors Industrial. And so one of the benefits we were to deliver from development of phase one was an ADA accessible ramp. Through development, there were, differing opinions on feasibility of that. First, given that stretch of land, there's a significant grade. You're dealing with multiple entities in terms of easements. Norfolk Southern, there's the GDOT, of course. So it's a small but very complicated piece of land. Worked really closely with Chris and his team over the last year, really starting in February, March of this last year, to understand what the expectations were of council for this, and then went through a series of reviews, engaged with the civil engineer group recommended by the city, Keck and Wood, to actually develop a set of plans that was not only feasible for the location, but acceptable to council. We had 3 different groups out there, got 3 different answers and opinions on how feasible it is. We finally got a set of plans we felt was acceptable to council to satisfy this benefit. At that point, we felt the need to go to GDOT. There was concern, one, if we got down the line and they said, it's not feasible, it's in our easement, or it interfered with certain other projects that we knew were on the books, considering the flyover lane project, which is considered for that same location. So we wanted to, that was around, I believe it was May. We got a conceptual set of plans from Keck and Wood. At that point, we began to engage with GDOT. Took around 12 weeks to get somebody in a meeting to look at it and discuss what they felt their objections or concerns may be. Happened to get a meeting with Paul Denard, who's the district engineer here, who felt comfortable based on the conceptual plans that we provided to move forward with the permitting process. He was going to discuss with some folks at GDOT any concerns with the flyover lane. So at that point gave us the confidence. We've now engaged with Keck and Wood. We've engaged with Bailey Construction, who was our general contractor for about 70% of the studios, to build the project. And we'll work closely with a construction management group who is our owner's rep to develop this and deliver it in a very transparent and expedient way. Of course, our Gray's desire for this is twofold. One, to satisfy our obligations for the city benefit. And two, this is the last remaining piece, as you know, for conveyance of the public roads and infrastructure that have since been completed at Assembly. And the capital investment there is sizable. It's north of, at last count, about 24 million. We have a desire to get this project to contract, get a GDOT permit in hand, and at that point would ask to have a meeting called here for official approval of conveyance of those roads. We know there's some other pieces with Lowe's Engineering, some other groups to convey it, but just wanted to give an update to you all of where we sit today. We are working expeditiously. We want to get this done by year end at Gray. And to see if you had any questions, but also to keep it top of mind, because we were hopeful to have more information for you today. Unfortunately, given all the entities that we have to work with on this project, it just took some due diligence and some time to make sure expectations were met and we had a feasible project to deliver. But appreciate the time and consideration of that. In addition to that, you know, if it gave further confidence of our intent and desire to do this in an expedient way, we would be open to holding the funds, the capital funds required for this project, which at last count conservatively is about $1.5 million, in an escrow account held by the appropriate entity. If it gave the confidence, you know, hey, they're committed to this. This is going to get done. We feel comfortable with the conveyance, with that piece, the GDOT permit, and the executed contract on a set of approved plans. And so that's kind of where we are. Just wanted to, you know, show face and give an update and meet you all and see if you had questions on it and how we can help get this to completion.
I'm all up for speed.
Yeah.
I guess kind of the same scenario with Dash Hospitality, you know,
Sure.
we want to see,
Yeah.
you know.
So the plans
visual.
as they exist now are conceptual. We released Keck and Wood. One of the major components of this project, given the slope of that specific piece of property, is the retaining wall.
Mhm.
And that could vary the costing significantly, or it could alter the plans. As it exists now, and I'll try and find a way to share this with you post this meeting, it's about, if you can imagine, from New Peachtree all the way down to where the current MARTA stairs exist,
Mhm.
down from that deck down to Motors Industrial.
Yeah.
It's about 325 feet of an 80 accessible ramp. So it would go down at the appropriate code slope for ADA, have some landings, come down to those stairs, and then you'd have a switchback where you'd turn and come back about 100 feet, and then it would drop down on Motors Industrial, which for us is a huge win for accessibility for our project, for the public. You know, we've had issues at those stairs with folks that just kind of camp out there. That tree canopy has been a inviting place for that. And so we think it provides many, many benefits. And at the point we have, all that to say, at the point we have a construction set of documents, plans that are approved by council, we'd love to share it with you all, renderings, all of that. Just right now, it's at a very conceptual space, and I was told that it could change a good bit. So I didn't want to show you something and then show
I
you
guess what I'm
something
saying is, like, if personally, if we want to do like a special meeting to kind of expedite things, let's do it.
That'd be great.
But yeah, let's have all of that ready.
Absolutely.
That
Yeah. And the intent
sounds
today
cool.
was to give you context. So at the
Sure.
point that we have a special meeting, you have these plans in front of you well ahead of time, and it can be more of an abbreviated meeting because we've had this discussion. So,
Perfect.
What Justin and I had discussed was you'd have a contract in hand, the permits from GDOT,
correct.
and then escrow it, and then felt like that would give confidence to council and the DDA that the project's getting done. In our meeting with GDOT, we stressed the safety, clearing up
Yes.
that area, opening it up. So this would include lighting.
Yep.
So it'd be a lit connection between Motors Industrial, new New Peachtree. And I know y'all, I think, still have plans, hoping for viewing parties, things like that for
World Cup, yeah, we're in
Uh,
discussions now for
You
the,
know, that would be a great connection.
yeah,
MARTA, down, and they already have employees that are using that or were. But if you're walking between that parking deck and those MARTA buildings down those steps, it's not
Yep.
comfortable right now.
yeah. And to Chris's point, one of the city benefits was a shuttle to service the Doraville MARTA station. I think last month we had close to 110 riders, so certainly seen some uptick there. Most of it Serta Simmons and Whitecap there, but some folks from the studio. We expect that number to grow, obviously, as development continues on the site. Yeah.
I was gonna say before I be comfortable moving forward with
Yeah.
releasing the road or doing the whole road deal and that, you know, accepting all that.
Yes.
Would be escrow, performance bond, whatever whatever is necessary so
Sure.
that if, you get your money and then for whatever reason, not saying you would, but I have to think too about, Gray Media could say, you know what, we're selling all the property, we're moving on, and get a new person comes in and they may say, we're not building this.
Sure.
And we've already got the money. It's like, I need to be ensured that we have the money or it's escrowed or in a bond where the project will get built as it's, required.
Absolutely.
And so that would be my only, and it sounds like that y'all are amenable to that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you for coming in and clarify this. I agree. I think what Steffi said is spot on. Yeah, that would make us feel very comfortable at that point. So
Fantastic.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Justin.
Yep.
Yeah, before the adjournment, do we have any questions or comments about anything? Anyone? No, before the adjournment,
I'm gonna have one
Okay,
comment.
okay,
No,
go
I
ahead.
went up to the Gainesville downtown thing y'all were all invited to. I know y'all had other commitments that you couldn't go, but I think the council should get involved with this downtown Georgia downtown. I can't remember the name of the group, but that you put on this conference. It was really well done. Learned a lot. They gave us some tours of like what they're doing with public art and other stuff in downtown Gainesville and what the DDA's done up there. And I think again, I talked about, it would be good for us to do a field trip to someplace like Dublin or something to see what some of these other cities have done. And I'll try to put together a report on everything I learned at that convention for the DDA and get that to y'all.
Thank you, Stephanie. If there are no other questions and comments, we have a new board member. And Sam, I wanted to ask, do you ever give an introduction to everyone on the last meeting or the meeting before that? In the first meeting? Yeah, if you could do a quick introduction, because it's been a while since we have the majority of members here. Yeah. Yeah.
I used to own shopping center, the H-Mart shopping center. Sold it. Bought the old 99 bench. One of the shopping I do a little bit. Mostly I down demo and everything.
Okay, great. Oh, that's great. Thank you, Sam. And we have a new board member, James Kim. If you could give us an introduction.
Yeah, thank you all for having me here tonight. My name is James Kim. I am an Atlanta resident, born and raised here. Had my undergraduate degree from Georgia Tech. A long time visitor, shopper, whatever you have to the city of Doraville. So for me to be here on this board to serve the city is a very fulfilling thing. I am a co-founder of Mean with Spirits. We are a brewery distillery based here in Doraville. And I just, thank everyone on the council, the city, the DDA for having me here. Hopefully I can just contribute in some small way to the future of Doraville.
James, thank you. And I just want to say real quick, as a new member, the members of the city council felt you were a stakeholder and that you would have something to contribute. And we look forward to working with you. And also, if you ever feel as though you don't quite understand what's going on and you can't remember everybody's name, that's normal. Especially there's a lot of stuff on the DDA, particularly concerning legality and real estate, which for the members here that don't have that background can be kind of daunting, but you can always ask questions and you'll learn as you go, and you'll still have the feeling I don't really understand everything. I want you to feel as though that, you're here living in the community, not just to make money or not just to live, but this is an opportunity to meet a lot of good, smart people and to really understand how the city and the community works. So welcome aboard. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Nope. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Okay.